as well.
Hmm. Hello, beautiful souls. We're back for another, oops, I'm going to put this on a gallery view so people can see both of us. There we go. We're back for another conversation in Illumination. I'm Aurora Light. This is my dear soul sister, Radiant Soul Nicole.
Hello.
And we've really been enjoying coming together to have conversations that are bringing light to topics that are needing a little bit more clarity, information, love, and basically just stuff that's coming up for us that we want to talk about for the collective. Every week for about a year, I have been setting an intention, feeling into the energy of what's coming up for me personally, and also for those that are in my field that resonate with my energy. And I put that forward. And what came through yesterday when I was feeling into this week's energy was the energy of liberation, which is a super interesting word. I know many people that are holding this for their personal energy for the year of liberation. And isn't that ironic in the years of these lockdowns, quarantines, and restrictions? So we want to dive into the topic of, can restrictions lead us to liberation? And also, just feel into how it can be an opportunity for us when we are being restricted, either physically, emotionally, within our bodies, whatever the outer circumstances, how it's an opportunity for us to go actually outside of the box, to get more creative and to explore things that wouldn't be possible if some restrictions weren't placed upon us. With everything, our philosophy is the ick, the crap, the shit that we don't want to see is actually always there as a gift to show us what we want instead, right? It's a something that's pointing us in the direction of where we want to go. So yeah, it's an interesting topic that's coming through, Nicole. How's this been showing up in your life?
Hmm. Yeah, so today I just like woke up with this big sense of I don't want like so often on Mondays if you're like in the spiritual world you might be part of lots of Facebook groups and things like that, and everybody's talking about setting up your week for success and what's your motivation for this week and let's get going, and just a lot of pushing. It felt like to me today anyway. Some weeks that feels good, but today I'm like, oh, that feels like so much pushing. Where I am at is today is just surrender with what is and not trying to change anything. So I went for a walk and went in the forest, and everything bloomed over the weekend. It's all the leaves are out, the leaves are blooming, the flowers are blossoming, and it reminded me that everything is happening in perfect timing. There's nothing I could have personally done to make the forest bloom quicker, for it to become spring quicker. It happened when it was supposed to happen. And that gave me such a beautiful reminder that I don't need to push and I can surrender and that I'm held. And I realized that that is freedom, because that takes away all the worry. I don't need to worry. I can just be free and can find that liberation from just being in nature and doing what I'm being called to do rather than trying to do something different. So that's how it's showing up for me today.
Mm. When you started bringing in nature, I immediately thought of things, people, animals, seeds in pods, right before they are birthed or break free or, like crack open their shell. Babies, animals in shells, all of that are going to feel the most tight and restricted right before they are born. Same thing when you are pregnant. Like those last little bits, you feel incredibly restricted from being able to like move and breathe. And then that liberation that comes from the birth, from the shell cracking open, from that seed sprouting, is coming from directly from that energy of outgrowing something, right? Of it being too small to be contained within something.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the feeling that's coming through to me. And I want to bring this from the zoomed in, like a little chick, or I don't know why, but a dinosaur is in my mind, like breaking through the shell, and zoom it out into the galactic perspective. I feel like humanity right now is right at that time where we are being restricted and squeezed by this energy of things feeling too tight, too small, too controlled. And we're about to, though we're not quite there yet, about to break free, bust through all of that energy of restriction into that liberation energy of remembering who we really are and our divine creative power and how we are so much more than we have given ourselves credit for. And I feel like right now we're being squeezed like through that birth canal, and it feels, and it is incredibly restrictive, like incredibly tight. There's so much pressure, but that energy almost has to be there in order for us to be able to break free to the other side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, like, how has that been showing up in your life? You've had some restrictions um, showing up for you, and that's caused you to go through the birth canal. And I feel like you're on the other side of it now, maybe.
In some ways, for my personal life, yes, but there's other things because we're very multidimensional. We're going through like many different birthing canals at the same time. It's not just one. But for me, I really felt the energy of early May to be really heavy, really dense, and I was exhausted. I felt like my energy was restricted. I wasn't able to do what I wanted to do, what I planned to do. My physical body was not having any of it. And I tuned in to see, like, what is this about? I did know energetically that we were in a huge storm and that we were moving through a lot, a lot. So there wasn't any judgment on me really, but it was like I just kind of wanted to be able to get stuff done. So I had to surrender that first off. And I checked in to see what this was showing me, what it was pointing me towards. And it was like, go inward, stop doing all of the things that are outwardly being expressed in terms of growing business and doing all the things like I love to do. So I had to go in and focus really on physical body healing and also at the genetic and ancestral healing. I had to do a ton of meditation, clearing, healing work, connecting with wounds that I thought perhaps I had just been able to skip on by, even in my relationship with my husband, things like that. Like it was all being brought up and saying, pay attention to me now. Forget about the outer world and all of that. I need you to dive in and pay attention to this stuff. Be with it, heal it, love it, clear it. And I did. And I went through it. And fortunately, I have the tools to do that. And I sought out support from other coaches and healers as well. But I did the inner work that was being presented to me. And yeah, there came a point just a couple days ago where I was like, I feel like I did it. And it's not like there's not going to be more things, but I peeled back that onion layer that was preventing me from being able to do anything else, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's like, I feel like so many of us, myself included, are like letting go of so much and letting go of stuff on the outside world right now. And it's scary and it's hard because we're like, well, I need to keep doing these things. I need to keep making money and, like, doing this stuff. But we're coming into this true reality now. And anything that we've created before this is not based completely in the true reality. So we had to let go of these and heal these things to propel us into the true reality so that now what we can create is from the truth. It is from mm, yeah, I guess just a higher level of alignment, a higher level of embodiment. And as we move through all of this stuff and trust the process, I think what we can create will be even greater and better than what we could have if we were, you know, not listening to what was being asked of us. I'm feeling like I'm in this place too right now where I'm like, oh, there are some things that are feeling stuck, and I did some like sexual trauma kind of healing, a little bit of clearing last night, because I feel like there's still some wounded feminine aspects of myself that on. So I've talked before about how I love to do healing work and like I'm ready to dive right in, but there is some stuff that is a little bit like I'm not as excited to dive into. And that is kind of some of it. And I'm like, I feel like this needs to be healed right now. And I'm feeling really a call to let go of some, or to heal some wounded masculine stuff so that I can come into more union of the divine mother and divine father within me and grow from there. And that feels like true reality, not playing those wounded games anymore.
I love that. Because, yeah, for me, it was about the family stuff that I kind of had just been like, well, I'm not going to deal with that. No, no, no. I'm just going to move beyond it. And we can't. It will catch up to us. The things that are hanging out in your field from your past lives, from your like soul's lives in your Akashic records, from your childhood, from the collective that have stuck to you, they all get to be looked at and dealt with. And Valerie was just saying with a question mark, praxis. And yeah, we should just talk about that because it's such a great energy for people to know about. And this word is so beautiful. So, praxis is the energy of that shift, that time right when the shell cracks open, right when the seed sprouts, right when something new is born. And it has this energy that literally shakes and trembles until it opens. And it feels like, yeah, we haven't busted through yet on the collective, but personally doing some of that work there. But that shaking energy is uncomfortable. It's a lot. It's those trembles in your legs when you're just like at the end of the finish line and it feels like you can't go on sometimes. So thank you for bringing up that beautiful, beautiful word, Val. Yeah. So there's other things that I just wanted to touch on that you were saying. And first off, I'm glad you're doing that healing work because it's really important. The things that we don't want to face are usually the ones that are like in the way of us stepping into what we're really here to do and to heal and to work with. And I know you really do bridge that divine feminine and divine masculine energy so beautifully. So amazing that you're going to level that up. Yay. But for anyone that's not sure what we're talking about when it comes to true reality, basically we've been living in this inverted reality, an inverted matrix where things have literally been upside down. And this is in terms of what we've valued, what we've held to be true, everything that our society is held as like important. It's reflected in our even what we've thought of in order to be something like say happy, we have to do X, Y, and Z, right? When actually the inverse is true, where the beingness comes first and the doingness gets to flow from there. So that's what we're talking about when we're coming into true reality. It's basically getting rid of all of the topsy-turvy energy and landing right side up for the first time in millennia.
Just breathing that in because that is going to be so amazing. And I feel like it is going to take a while. Like, I guess we're energetically in it now. It's going to take a while for it to show up physically in the world.
Things always do arrive in the energetic first. That's why our consciousness is a really important place to start with, right? We work with the consciousness fields, we work with our mindset. Then, after the energy comes like the mental, and then it comes into the body and it gets to be physicalized. So, we get to work with all of those levels at once. But for those of us that can feel and see and know what the energy is doing, there is some really beautiful stuff that is going to be transpiring. And it's going to take a while to land. Like the outer world is still going to be full of restrictions and chaos. And Nicole and I both thought of this as an opportunity because that's what we're primed to do. We're primed to look for all of the crap as an opportunity, as that point that shows us what we want instead. And when I was both learning and teaching hoop dance, we would often artificially place restrictions on ourselves or on our students in ways that didn't make sense. They didn't actually conform to real reality. Like we would say, okay, now you can only hula hoop with your non-dominant hand, and your other hand has to hold a water bottle, and make people hula hoop like that. That's not a thing that you would ever do normally. But artificially placing restrictions like that would force people out of their routine, out of their comfort zone, and into more creative expressions. It's a pattern interrupt. And through that, the creativity would blossom and the body would open up into new pathways of movement. So, riff on that. Tell me how powerful of an exercise that has been for you.
Super powerful. Like, I think one of the biggest things that it helped me with was also just reprogram my thoughts about like wintertime. Hula hooping in the summer in Edmonton is amazing because you can do it outside, but so many of us have small little hooping spaces on the inside. And um, instead of seeing that as something that's annoying and like seeing the negative sides of it, the restrictions, it got to be an opportunity and challenge to be like, oh, what can I do? How can I expand my hoop practice from this different way? And how can I explore hooping in this small space, or and just seeing what comes out of that. And that makes you so much more of a dynamic hooper. Or if you can apply this into just, your everyday life, it can make you so much more resilient. You can hoop in this tiny little place or live in this tiny little place or outdoors. And I think it brings, thinking back to hooping, it brings so much more body awareness as well. Like you have these restrictions on, and you just become more in tune with what is happening in the present moment. And it maybe gives you more opportunity to, yeah, just try different things out and play a little bit more and be more creative. I'm not sure what is how did that show up for you?
Well, first off, what I keep thinking of is it turns you into like a ninja or like MacGyver, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's one thing to be able to create or invent or fix things when you've got the full toolkit available to you in, a garage or a lab, and quite another in a prison cell with a paper clip, a piece of gum, and maybe like a window pane or what have you. So
Mm-hmm.
anyone that's too young to watch MacGyver, he was this guy who would fix things with the kinds of items that he would find in a room, really, really limited sets of circumstances. And it's that invention being, or necessity being the mother of invention kind of energy that forces creativity, that allows people to expand their skill set and be able to do things beyond what we even believe to be possible. So it is really interesting to think of restrictions as a catalyst, or even I'm feeling like it's like an incubator for possibility, for potential, for us to evolve and grow in creative ways that we wouldn't otherwise had we not ever been restricted. So, a way that's showing up in my life currently, and it has in the past, is when I've been injured. And this might be something that other people can be relating to maybe a little more than hula hooping, though I know we have hula hoopers that are like, yes, I get it. When I'm injured, and I can't say walk as easily as I would normally be able to, you need to figure out different ways of moving through the world. And sometimes it looks like getting support. Sometimes it looks like getting like a knee scooter or crutches. Sometimes it looks like hopping. We wind up moving in different ways, in different paths. But it also has meant in many ways coming into really profound gratitude when those restrictions are lifted in ways that I don't think I would have if I hadn't had the injury in the first place. So I think as humans, we really need clarity through contrast, or at least that's how we have needed to understand, have gratitude or respect for something. right? We don't know what it's like to have freedom unless we have it kind of briefly taken away from us.
Mhm. Yeah, I can relate to that so much with my concussion, um, and any other injury I've had for sure. Or it's like when you haven't done yoga in a long time or something like that that makes your body feel really good, and then you do it again. You're like, oh, this feels so good. I appreciate it so much. Why did I stop doing it? But it's okay because you needed it to like have a break so it could like feel extra good again. And so you could appreciate it just that much more having those restrictions taken away. I don't think in my life. So the year that I got the concussion was the same year that my word for the year was soften. And I wasn't softening, and I wouldn't have gotten there if I hadn't got the concussion, I don't think. So, as much as it sucked, I also needed that lesson, and learned so much from it. And also, I would love to be able to listen more so that I don't have to go through those really hard lessons again.
Yeah, I think that's really key. Like for personal and for humanity, if I can speak on behalf of humanity, a lot of times we don't, as a species, as a society, listen to the subtle messages that our souls or the earth or whatever have been whispering to us. And part of that is because we don't spend very much time, like in stillness, in contemplation, in connection with all that is, because there have been a lot of signs. So collectively, we sometimes require really major events and shakeups to move us in the direction that we need to be going. So I know too, for myself, same kind of thing. In the past, I wouldn't listen to the whisperings. So then something would come along and take me out and be like, bam, broken ankle. Okay, now you have to do all of the learning, the doubling down of self-care, the understanding of you can't do it all on your own and you need support. Like the lessons that the world had been trying to share with me very gently that I rejected just came through in a less pleasant way. And now when I hear those whisperings, I am far more keen to listen because I don't want to go through a big smackdown again. And it's not that it can't happen, because sometimes we just have either resistance or we just can't hear the lessons. Maybe we need to go through a big shakeup just because it's required on our soul's journey. But I think after it happens once or twice, if you start to notice the pattern and you know it's happening, you're far more likely to act on what you're being guided to by your highest self, your guides, your soul, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And that really sounds like a lot what's happened in the last year in the world, doesn't it? Maybe humanity as a whole wasn't listening to the whisperings. And this is what we decided on, to go through this whole experience together. And it has been so interesting to see how it's all played out.
Yeah. I mean, I would love for us to be collectively at a place where we don't need to go through giant wake up calls to be woken up. We're not there yet. Now, Nicole and I just want to acknowledge that when we're talking about liberation here, we're speaking from our very privileged perspective, coming from, a place, background where we do have a lot of freedoms, regardless of whatever restrictions are currently in place in our province. We are free to speak. We're not living in a war zone, et cetera, et cetera. And when we don't have those physical liberties, when those are being taken from us, I mean, sometimes that is completely beyond our control. And yet, I have heard it said by many people. I think Nelson Mandela would have been the one that I can recall that would have said it, that, like nobody can take away your soul's freedom. Even if you are in prison, if you are literally unable to move, no one can control your mind unless you allow them to. No one can take away your soul's liberty and that feeling of agency to be able to be in charge of your thoughts, your feelings, and your essence. So honoring and acknowledging the privilege that we come from, but we are speaking into the fact that we can choose how we allow things to affect us in very many ways, and how we perceive it is going to change how we respond to it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Ah, it's like are you viewing things as happening to you or for you? And that's really such a big distinction. And there was a lot of my life where I lived in the things are happening to me and I'm a victim mentality. And it's not as much fun there, but I didn't have to take accountability of things when it was like that. And I, looked out everywhere else except for looking at myself. And, hmm, yeah, and now it's a lot more work to look within and do the work within, but it also grants you so much more freedom and liberation because I don't have control over anybody else, anyways. So surrendering that control or that perceived control, I guess, of what's happening outside of me and really taking accountability on my own, that's where my power lies. And that's where I actually find a lot of freedom is having like feeling my own sense of empowerment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we can't control the circumstances that are happening to us, right? So, just to be clear about that, we can still be affected adversely by the outside world, of course. The freedom comes from what you do with that and how you allow it to move you. Now, it does get really complicated if we move into the idea that, sometimes people have been victimized in ways that activates the nervous system, right? And throws us into, um, you know, PTSD or CPTSD in ways that we don't feel safe. So that's always going to be the very first thing that we get to do for ourselves to be able to move out of the victim mindset. I mean, if you have freaking be victimized, even shifting that language from victim to survivor, right? Gives you back the agency, gives you back the power. So society is noticing that we need to make shifts out of that victim space. And it's that old inverted matrix of the paradigm that we had been playing out, right? So we are in the process of shifting it. And the very first thing we get to do is shift the mindset and shifting the perception and then calming the body and the vagus nerve and healing all of the fight or flight that comes up in a situation like that, because we can't really do the rest of it, all the spiritual stuff, until the body feels safe enough to do that work. So also just wanting to acknowledge that that is the key for anything that has flipped you into a feeling where you're not safe enough.
Mm-hmm. So powerful. So I have a story that's coming up. So this weekend we were at my cabin and I was thinking, oh, it's going to be so relaxing to go out in nature and enjoy that. And then I sometimes forget that I have a 4-year-old daughter and taking her out and doing things like that is not relaxing. And she was having a tough time with things and she just said she just wanted it to be normal and she didn't want to sleep there. And so she was like, yeah, a little bit more challenging because she was having a tough time with things. But I was holding space for her and she needs to have these experiences. And so she ended up staying like up to like 11 on Friday night because she was scared, and then she still got up at a normal like 7:30 on Saturday. So she was like she was not pleasant most of the day. So we were all tired, and I was like, oh, I should be enjoying myself more. Why am I not enjoying myself? Just it's just kind of feeling eh. And then on Sunday, she finally relaxed. We got got the iPad going for her and she watched a movie and I could finally lay in my hammock for like an hour and a half or 2 hours or something. And I finally was able to relax and really like let myself be held and let my nervous system relax. And then a smile just slowly started creeping up my face and I felt that sense of finally letting go because I wasn't in that relaxed state before and I was trying to force myself to be in a different state without having that key piece of my nervous system being in that relaxation that it needed to be and that release. And when I finally got that, then I'm like, oh, it's all making sense. I was trying to force instead of being with what was. I wasn't accepting where we were at, and sometimes it takes, I guess, an hour and a half of laying in a hammock to get that relaxation. So it's so important.
So I feel like that restriction energy is what really we experience in our body when our nervous system is all riled up and it's all like tight and squeezed and it's in security, survival, safety mode. And in order to be liberated from that state, we do need to basically allow all of the restrictions to melt away. And it's only if we're aware of the fact that it's a thing, typically, are we able to do something about the thing. And there are many people that have been existing in a state of fight or flight, you know, their whole lives without really understanding anything different. And that I think is one of the main issues that society is going to need to look at pretty soon in order to support people in moving out of this survival victim, the world is about to end, everything is awful paradigm, right? Which a lot of people are existing in. Because without that feeling of being able to relax, being able to feel safe in the moment, you know, we can't get to that place of feeling free enough to express ourselves and become conscious creators and do all those things. So I love that this conversation has brought us really to the root and to the key. And I'm so passionate about all of the things that we share as practices for people, because that's typically where they start, right? And then we love to bring people further up into the expansive, liberated, soul is flying around the cosmos place like we do in our playground ceremonies and things like that. But we need to relax the nervous system first and to support the body into feeling secure enough to be able to do that. And those are some of the first key steps. So since we're at this space, I think we've talked about some of them before, but maybe we could just throw a couple of our favorite ways of relaxing the nervous system. And I know you've got a few ones that are really great for that vagal nerve in your pocket. So tell us about them.
Yeah, so one of them is, it's called the Oh My God points. It's an Eden energy medicine technique. And so if you're like something, I don't know, pisses you off, or you're like worried and you're like, oh my God, where your hands go, you want to hold those points. And it actually, like, really, if you hold them for about a minute with fairly, like, not hurting yourself, but some pretty good pressure, it'll start to calm your nervous system and
Ooh,
just feel like instant relaxation. So this one you could even do, you know, if you're like at work sitting at your desk or something and you just have your head down, you can do that like relatively easily in public. Another one is gargling. So gargling activates your parasympathetic nervous system by stimulating your vagus nerve as well. So if you can try to gargle for a minute, well, like at the end of brushing your teeth, that's actually a great way to kind of build that muscle up and regularly. But also if you're like kind of in that state and you need something really quick, it's a great way to do it as well. So I don't really need to gargle, people know
I
how.
was gonna ask if you would. No, you don't have to. I
Sure, why not?
was like, you're holding it. Are you gonna do the thing? Did anybody else notice her shoulders drop? That was so cool. That was so neat to witness the moment it hit. I'm so glad you did that for us. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, those are two of my favorite go-to ones. Do you have any that are like super quick ones like that?
Oh, literally shaking. That's one of my favorites. And also making noise, just like getting it out. I mean, sometimes I will do it with like toning, light language. One really silly one that we've been doing is like listening to heavy metal versions of like kids tracks and sometimes just the adult tracks with my daughter. And we just like yelling in the car and it feels very cathartic. And afterwards we're like smiling and relaxed and happy. So my daughter calls it music with energy. And I was never one to appreciate it. I was like, oh no, it's too much yelling. And now I understand that sometimes when you're all jacked up, it really helps that movement of energy, and then you get the endorphins afterwards too. So I tend to be one who likes the big bursts of movement and energy that then create the endorphin rush. So then I'm relaxed. That's what I love, like sprinting as fast as I can, dancing really, really hard, having a good cry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds like you like to really expel the energy and then surrender after.
Yes. And that is that energy of like when I'm feeling restricted, when I'm feeling in that fight or flight, I need to like, and then I'm like, ah.
Mm-hmm.
So then I feel free. Then I feel liberated because the restriction is showing me like, I really don't like that. I prefer feeling free in my body, free in my mind, free in my soul, free to move and be in that higher vibrational frequency. But as much as I've trained to be there, I can't stay there all the time, right? Like we are human. And with all of the practices that I do, I mean, I'm there probably 80, 90% of the time, but there are times when I am affected by outer circumstances, by stress, by, like the collective energy, by ancestral stuff that's coming up, old wounding. And then I need to move the energy or it's just going to stay there. So when you're feeling stuck, when you're feeling restricted, it's a great question to ask yourself, how can I move this energy, right? How can I move it? How does it, or how does this energy want to be moved? And the first thing that pops into your head, do that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Or if you're not sure and you don't have a whole copy of, tools, you could write one down for yourself. That's write a whole list. This is what we did in my Evolve program. I had everybody like make up lists and we literally wrote them down of all the different practices that we use to move energy and get back into or stay in alignment and keep it somewhere where we can see it. And using those every day has been a really beautiful practice. That's also why Nicole and I created the playground. We also have our friend Nina that joins us in there as well. And we've got reams of tools to be able to stay or play in alignment. Everything from your presentation that offers like so many different ways of calming the nervous system.
Yeah, the 5 techniques to calm the nervous system.
I was going to say 5, but I also wanted to say a trillion. Like you threw a lot in there, more than that. Um, to different things like soul journeys, to Kundalini yoga, SRT, movement practices, breath practices, all kinds of different ways of moving that energy so we can move out of feeling restricted in our bodies and into that open, liberated state of expansion where we have the higher perspective. And when we're in that expanded state, then we have access to all the tools we need, our intuition, our logic, our intellect, our reason, our capacity to see the problems for what they really are, these opportunities for us to learn and grow and shift and change things. And when we're in it, when we're in that fight or flight, we can't see any of that.
No, there was a back in March. I like hit the resonant field of hitting my head when I got the concussion.
Mm.
And so I was typing out a post about how I got smacked upside the head. And as I did that, I felt energetically like I got smacked upside the head again. I felt like my body started shaking. I felt like it put me into fight or flight. And I hadn't been in that state of fight or flight in so long. I was like walking around the house. I didn't know what to do with myself. I'm like, I don't know, like pacing kind of almost. It was wild. I don't know why that showed up again. Um, and my normal, like, quick little things to help with dealing with anxiety and that kind of stressed nervous system weren't working. I had to like go full in and do I think I did my calm your nerves video. I'm like, oh, good, Nicole, use your own medicine that you've already shared. But I had to do more than that and like take calming herbs and like all sorts of things. And I was able to get myself out of it. But it can be like it's really intense when you're in that state. So that's why it's so important also to have like to know where your tools are so that you can go access them. So when your like mind isn't in the right state to actually like think yourself out of something, this one's also super important too because it brings a blood flow back here. So that's why that also does that. Yeah. So it's just really important to have those tools to know where to go and to come back to that because being in that state is tough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were talking about how restrictions in general can foster creativity, but not when you're in that fight or flight survival state. When that has been activated, you just need to get yourself back into the relaxed state in order to be able to access the creativity that can come from not being able to do or what you would normally do, right? To move the way you would normally move or create the way you would normally create. So, as with everything, there's good and bad, if you want to put it in those categories. But really, there's opportunity, right? So, do these bad things like restrictions necessarily stay in the bad category for me? Typically not. I always like to think of them as these opportunities are here to kick my ass, and then I'm grateful for it because it's the catalyst, the catapult to get me to where I needed to go, but wasn't willing to go on my own. I think that's really what it is. So I can be grateful at least afterwards, but sometimes in the moment, at least afterwards.
Yes, going through the pain is never fun, usually in the moment, but
Unless you like that thing, I guess.
I guess some people do.
Yeah. So, I mean, collectively, the restrictions that we are going through, as a global community really freaking suck. And I mean, there's not just COVID that we're talking about. There's places that are, really being restricted by governments or they're, under siege. There's all of these things. And what we can do to navigate them as a collective is to use them as an opportunity to show us what we want instead. Instead of being beaten down by them, go, okay, this isn't working. We don't like this. What's the other way? What else is possible here? And then we need to get freaking creative so we can solve all of the world's problems. It's possible. I believe in humanity so much. We are so creative, especially when we're feeling, safe and like ourselves. So we're going to get through this together. It's going to take a little more time to get to that place where we can all be grateful and laugh about it.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, and in the meantime, just keep focusing on what we do want to create and build and keep using what we don't want to point us in the direction of what we do want. Space for, you know, for equity for all.
Exactly. Equity. And like, I mean, I would like nothing more than the liberation of all beings on this planet. So go big or go home. That's what I'm holding space for. So, I mean, the thing is, though, we have to begin with our own personal liberation. And that's going to look the way it's going to look for each of us individually. But for me, the key is to become in that relaxed state of surrender, of possibility, and then moving into the next steps as they come, one step at a time.
Mm-hmm. Yes, same. Just remember that everything is happening. Just look to nature because nature will always give you the, or at least gives me the guidance, anyways, that I need. That spring happened. It's going to happen no matter if I try to force it or, and it's so much easier if I just embrace where I'm at, where we're at.
Mm-hmm. Nature has so much to teach us, and I'll just drop a few seeds. I will be really returning to my roots as an elemental creation coach and priestess over the next few months. And we're going to be bringing in a whole lot more of the natural teachings of the elemental forces of creation, the wheel of the year, and all of that, because honestly, us being divorced from nature and the true cycles that we exist in by living on this planet has created a lot of the distress and the problems, and a return to that just feels really peaceful and wholesome for me. So we'll be heading into more of that, connecting with Gaia, connecting with the elements over the next while.
Oh, I got so many tingles for that. I am excited to be on that journey.
Yeah. So if anybody is looking for more tools in their toolkit, please join us in the playground. We are going to be doing an ancestral healing ceremony with Anita Mattal just this Thursday. Our vast library of ceremonies and tools is available anytime. So if you're having a moment like Nicole was the other day, you can log in and look and see what is glowing. Is it movement? Is it meditation? Is it breath work? Is it belief or patterning? Is it light language? Is it a ceremony to expand your creation container? Like there's so much in there, and we add 6 or 7 new tools a month. So that is something we would love to invite you to. If you feel like it would support you, we would love for you to come and play with us.
Absolutely.
Beautiful. Well, Nicole, I am feeling more free and ready to continue my day after our talks. I really enjoy these. We will let you know about the time for next week because it is the long weekend here in Canada. That might shift a bit, but we will see you sometime next week, next Monday.
Yeah. All right. Bye, lovelies.
If you're watching this on YouTube, you should probably go ahead and like and subscribe, and we'll wish you a beautiful day. Bye.
Bye bye.